Hello, my name is Hostark. I was talking to famous people, and today I'd like to talk in this video a little bit more about Europe, but not specifically historical Europe, but contemporary Europe, and the roles of the West and the non-West in various capacities, the changing relationship between the United States and Europe, etc., etc. So it's interesting that we continue to frame the world as we always have for the entirety of my life, anyway. And it's in two opposing sections, basically. What you'd call free and fair democracies or open societies or whatever you want to call it, versus oppressive societies, authoritarian societies. So on the one team, you've got China, North Korea, Iran, and Russia, and Venezuela, I guess, Cuba. Who else? Syria. Maybe Pakistan. And then, so you've got those guys. You may additionally have a few super strongman-y African republics who consider themselves allies of those people too. I don't know. But the main ones are the ones I listed there as far as that block of countries. And the opposing block of countries is going to be the West. It's going to be the United States, Canada, Europe, it includes Germany, England, France, your Scandinavian countries, and everybody in the EU. Then you've got these border countries, and these are the ones where we experience a lot of problems with Russia. You've got your Georgia, your Estonia, your Ukraine, and Russia has got aspirations on them, so they go and want to fuck with them. Those countries, that former Eastern Bloc countries that are West-leaning, West-desiring, and or West-manifesting when left alone, would like our help in dealing with an aggressive Russia that's trying to meddle in their internal affairs. The other end of the axis there, you've got China, North Korea, and they've got their own Eastern Bloc country in Taiwan that they want to take over and be the hegemon about. So both these countries, China and Russia, behave differently, but they both behave in ways that violate what I consider international norms and or the basic tenets of policies that promote justice and openness, and ultimately the best results. So with China, you're looking at a country that has massive population, that has a lot of resources, but that also has an unsustainable manner of public policy. However, it's also a manner of public policy that's evolving to try to make it more sustainable from the Chinese perspective, and that in general tends to defy precedent. So we don't often have a lot of guidance regarding China by looking at the past, because China behaves differently than any other communist country ever has. It's not really a communist country. And it's much more pragmatic. It's not really that ideological, especially for a communist country that begins life as ideologically monistic, right? That this is our ideology. Everybody must hold to it, or else you're subject to punishment. So in this kind of a context of the beginning of a nation state, you don't normally expect it to be quite so able to pragmatically move away from ideology. But I think the Chinese never really bought into it the top level people anyway, as much as maybe Russians. I don't really know. I mean, I know they did a lot of social engineering in China, and certainly the common person has no idea what's going on. I mean, they think they bought into all kinds of bullshit, as evidenced with my conversation with Jasmine, who is a student from China, from Shanghai. Now, these teams of sorts that we have, they're, as I said before, an interesting phenomenon because it wouldn't seem necessarily to be the case that humanity would manifest both. That you could imagine the gap between ideal manifestation of a country and least ideal manifestation of the country, like most ideal and least ideal, being fairly narrow. The countries being basically all the kind of operating things you could imagine in theory. There's also a third element to consider, which is you've got another culture that is not about authoritarianism. It's truly ideological. So China is like half ideological, fake ideological, because at the end of the day, money talks. But take somebody like ISIS, well, that's a whole different ballgame. I mean, ISIS is not interested in anything except converting the world and taking over everybody and making them all Muslim and owning women and stuff like that. So it's a shared enemy. Neither China nor the United States nor even North Korea wants ISIS to win. The only people who kind of like what ISIS is doing right now are, of course, who else? The Russians, because they enjoy that kind of disruptive force in the Middle East, which raises the price on their oil, for one thing. This is one thing. But Russia's not afraid to bomb ISIS either. Look, Russia's not afraid to be the tough, big bad guy of the region, but they don't actually want to solve the problem, per se, I don't think. So we're looking then at this odd multiplayer system. This forms into teams, and the teams have varying degrees of agreement with each other. There are international norms, but one team doesn't acknowledge them. The normal standards for deciding whether or not a state is engaged in proper behavior are only sometimes applied to the bigger countries on the bad guys teams and only sometimes applied to the countries on the good guy teams. So that's a problem as well in terms of managing with international politics and nation states and such. But the most important thing to note about the status quo is that many of these battles have to be fought win-loss. Like, we can't compromise with ISIS. There's no compromising with them. There's no saying, all right, well, we'll become a little bit Muslim. Will that make you happy? Not that anybody's suggesting we do. But even if we wanted it wouldn't work. Because two worldviews are conflicting. They can't both coexist. A liberty-focused worldview that says free expression is important and that we resolve our differences with words, not guns, is incompatible with an ISIS worldview. So, in this instance, we've got two histories that are on a collision course, only one of which can prevail. And similarly, with the authoritarian regime, in my opinion, either they drag us down through a mechanism of gradual compromises, breaking it down, or they don't. My position is we ought to expose behavior for what it is in all instances, and not try to play along with euphemisms and lies. Why is it that we have Chinese Taipei participating in the Olympics when Taiwan is its own country? Because China is bushy. That's why. China's quite fussy about it. So, at the end of the day, those kind of authoritarian regimes are fundamentally incompatible with liberty-loving people. And we'll see it in Eastern Europe as well. The people of those Eastern Bloc countries who want to resist Russia, they're not in a good shape. What's the U.S. going to do? How's history going to play out? It's an interesting question to try to determine how geopolitics proceed going forward for the next 100 years or so. Do we still have a China and an America that look basically the same in 100 years? I'd say yeah. Do we still have a Russia that looks basically the same? I'd say no. And I don't know what Russia's going to look like, but Russia right now in its current incarnation is such a manifestation of Putin's personality that whoever the next leader is going to run things substantially differently, unavoidably so. Russia's government is Putin, and Putin is Russia's government. They have a all-powerful king. So that's, I don't remember what the original topic of this was. That's my general overview of the state of the world. I think authoritarianism will weaken gradually, fall away. If people can take advantage of cryptocurrencies to avoid economic controls of governments, that would be a substantial amount of progress for humanity. So it's hard to say 100 years is a long time from now. But if I had to guess, I would say, as I said, that the United States government will persist in its current state, hopefully increasingly libertarian, or at least increasingly aware of rights and impacts and realities and stuff like that. And I would anticipate that China's government, there's no reason for that party structure to fall apart now. It's so entrenched. I expect it'll persist, but again, it'll undergo periodic reforms as it tries to address its own inefficiencies. At least the Chinese are not, it's not rotted in the inside. They want to both maintain power and do an effective job of running the country, even if we might not approve of their ways. They want that, at least. It's not just like Putin wants more money for himself. That's it. No, he doesn't have enough, right? He wants bullshit like for the world to respect him and shit like that. So anyway, that's my thoughts on contemporary world politics. Let's all try to not shoot at each other as much as possible, please. If you guys need that piece of advice. If you're an ISIS person, no, dude, you fucked up. It's okay to kill you. Basically, you're an ISIS fighter right now, and you're in the Middle East just fucking shit up, and nobody's gonna cry if somebody shoots you, man. So don't be an ISIS fighter. That's the moral of this story.